Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today we're going to be taking a look at the migration process that's currently in effect. Specifically, we're looking at SS1-3, which is the second merge kingdom from kingdoms 7 through 10, and we're going to take a look at their migration process. I'm going to give you some thoughts on this. I'm also going to tell you why I think some of these things can be incredibly impactful in a negative way to your kingdom, along with some pros as well. And then some conclusive thoughts at the end. So let's start off by just defining what is the migration rules currently and how does it work. So for this one, we'll go to rules. It says your city's got to be level 16. When migration begins, you have a limited window. From what we understand, this is 3 days. You can migrate to a kingdom in the same division. This means if you're in Kingdom 7, you could go to 8, 9, or 10, right? But it has to be within one of those 4 kingdoms. You may migrate multiple times, but each migration will cost gems. From what we understand on that, it should be 5,000. Right here, we don't know if that number increases by chance. Maybe it does if you migrate once and you want to migrate again. Or, guns are hardcore right now. Or if it is just multiple 5K every time you have to do it if you want to move. Once your migration is complete, the game will automatically restart. Overpopulated servers will be marked as full. You cannot migrate to full servers, but you may be able to try again once players on that server have migrated to others. If you migrate multiple characters to the same server, you will only be able to log in and play as one of those characters at the same time. So here's the example. SS1-1 is made up of servers 1 through 4. Technically, it's 1 through 6, but, beggars can't be choosers. I'm not going to really go in that hard there. Players from server 1 can migrate to 2, 3, or 4. When the next season begins, Division SS1-1 will be disbanded. When that season ends, servers will be grouped into divisions again, but may not necessarily be grouped together with servers from their previous division. So this is important because what this means is that when season 2 or whenever the next merge season happens, there's a chance that they may either try to pair you together with some type of ELO rating where you're closer in power to other kingdoms. Maybe they just give you other random servers that you get matched with. Those particulars for how you're going to get matched in future seasons, we do not know what the criteria is there, at least as of yet, but it is nice to see and hear that you're not just going to go right back into the same group as you were before. Now, I wouldn't have necessarily been against that, but the challenge is that, and I'm hoping really where they're going with this is they're going to let everyone migrate, and then they'll pair kingdoms up based on maybe server activity, or maybe they'll go like, low activity, high activity, low activity, high activity for the groups, or maybe high activity. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But I guess this does give them some flexibility on ways that they can play the situation from here when it comes to the second merged or next grouped servers. When a player migrates into server 2, they will start the next season playing alongside other players from server 2. So now I want to talk about what I think are some of the very kind of big hurdles here. Is that something you may not have noticed is there's no power limit. You could have any player at any strength migrate out of one server and into another, right? What this means is that, let's say, and I'm just going to give you the worst case of the worst, and I've seen this happen in Kingdom Builders before. Let's say you have a group that just wants to do nothing but just terrorize, do PvP all day, kill anyone and everyone. Sometimes you'll usually see these as like mid or high spender groups, and they'll just go like they don't care about how a kingdom is set up. Like this is, if you have to think about it, this is the perfect environment for that type of situation to occur because you have no limits on specifically how much power can come into a kingdom, right? They might be basing general activity, like where it says normal, active, crowded, full. They might be basing that off of how many active players are just playing their accounts actively without having to redundantly see active or actively too much. And it may not be going off of, well, how much power is coming in. So that's something that to me is incredibly scary and something that is, I believe, just very worrisome. I just don't think that should be a thing that's in the game. I think what they should do is, like, for example, if you're not going to allow a king or queen to be in place, which, as I've said multiple times, I am in favor of. I think kingdoms need to have a level of autonomy that separates themselves from developer control, but more so the developers are giving the kingdoms and giving the players the utilities to be in control, so that way, because this is what you have to understand, it doesn't really matter if they're trying to gear COD towards some type of rock or non-rock environment, right? Like the one thing we often hear is that, well, they're trying to deter away from that and go with more kind of an alliance style system, right? Where it's more about the alliance and not about the kingdom. But if that was the case, they would never have allowed for you to go back to your home kingdom. They just would have had you go from one merge kingdom and had that be the new one, and then maybe you merge again later on. So the fact is that having a home kingdom in these types of games is kind of a standard. It doesn't mean that it can never not happen or that it won't be the staple going forward, but it makes sense that you have a home kingdom. And so because of that, then this is the thing. It's almost as though when I look at how the game's being played, it's like, okay, hey, they thought, let's not have home kingdoms and let's do it this way with constant resets and we'll just merge down the road. And then, and bear in mind, we didn't really know if they were going to do home kingdoms or not. So maybe from the developer's point of view, they were always going to have a home kingdom. But from the community standpoint, we did not know if they were going to do that or not. And then you ended up hearing some members from the community saying, man, this is kind of rough. It would be nice for us to have a home kingdom. And, then we end up hearing, well, you're going to end up going back with the whole demerging, which implies home kingdom, right? So now you're kind of getting a little more away from, looking at the game as it's just a bunch of alliances versus other alliances. Because if you look at the game now, it's not really like that. It's really kind of it's taking a step back from that. And then you look at how the migration is set up, and this is something that CoD used to have in their game, where you could migrate anywhere you wanted to, no limits at all in the beginning before they started adding in more migration restrictions or actual restrictions, and then they eventually added in Imperium statuses and then other stipulations as well. So to me, this kind of almost looks like the same step that they're doing in that direction, where to me, it just makes sense that it's going to hopefully lead to where, hey, we will eventually allow for a king or queen to be crowned, or maybe just something different than that. But the fact is that I'm still going to be a big proponent of that. Kingdoms should have a level of autonomy to choose who they let into a kingdom and who they do not let into a kingdom, right? Logically speaking, if you're running a kingdom back in like the 16, 15, 1400s, whenever it was, I mean, again, you're going to approve people that are coming in or not. It's not like you're just going to let anyone through the gate, so to speak, right? Maybe if it's the outer gate, but not the inner gate, right? And so, and again, I'm being very literal in that sense, but the idea behind it is that if you're running a kingdom, and let's take this a step back before we really clarify on this even more, because this is gonna connect some more dots. You as an alliance, we're seeing groups that are going into kingdoms. So this is something that you're going to see projects, again, you may call them jump projects, but we'll just call them projects for short, that have multiple alliances. A lot of players are going into kingdoms, and you're seeing kingdoms now where there's a higher percentage chance that groups and or projects will have some form of management or control or majority presence in those kingdoms. And who wants... At that point, let's say you have a stable kingdom, because think about this, you have a stable kingdom, your kingdom's unified, you have great activity, you have great player retention, that's only good for the game. Why? Because if you have 2,000 or 3,000 active players in your kingdom, that's a higher chance that more people are spending money on the game because they're actually enjoying being a part of an active kingdom that isn't just war-torn. And you have more general activity, which means you're going to be able to enjoy PvP a lot more when the merge kingdoms come up. So if you really think about it logically, keeping kingdoms as sustainably healthy as possible is only in the best interest of the game. So from this standpoint, when you look at this type of migration system, it completely contradicts what the end goal or what one of the main goals is as a developer for what you're looking to get out of your game to increase net revenue and to have phenomenal activity so the players are enjoying it and not playing in dead kingdoms or low active merge seasons. So, again, that's why it's very hard for me to look at this and say, this is ideal. Now, what I will say is this. If they plan to continue with this going forward, then my recommendation is they need to put a cap on how many players over a certain power threshold or a specific power can join a kingdom, right? So it can't just be, because you have to think about it. Like, let's say you could have 100 people join, even though we don't know what the number is. What's to stop them? What's to stop 100 players from a kingdom going in where they're all over 70, 80, 100 mil power? Because eventually it's going to be that. It may not be that necessarily right now because the game is still fairly young and there's not that many people that are over 100 mil. But eventually you're going to get to a point where this rule does not stop 5, 10 T5 players from just going around to a kingdom and just causing havoc. Again, is migration good because it'll help you bring in activity to your kingdom? 100%. But the unfortunate part about how this system is there's no oversight. There's literally nothing here that is protecting your kingdom from the worst case scenario. And to me, it's an incredible red flag. So that's why I'm saying, if they're going to keep this system in place, then there needs to be some type of thing where they say, hey, you could have 30 people that are between 30 and 50 mil. You could have 20 people between this, or better yet, right? Or even if you just want to have it at the high end, right? Which maybe makes more sense. If you say, right, like people that are over 60 mil, because there's a chance if you're at 60 mil, you probably have all T5s unlocked. So you could say something like, well, if you're between 60 and 80 mil, you can have 20 people join. If you're 80 to 100, 80 to 90, you could have 10. If you're 90 to 100, you could have 10. If you're 100 plus, you could have 5. Like just something. And again, I'm not saying that's foolproof. I'm just again kind of throwing some paint out. But the point is, there needs to at least be something that is there to protect the kingdoms as well, in my opinion. I mean, again, unless the direction they're going in is they do not care, like the developers do not care about kingdom sustainability or health, and they just want the kingdoms to be fighting nonstop 24/7, and then it doesn't matter where, like, we're basically going to treat it like it's Brawl Stars, or like it's the Hunger Games, so to speak, or it's Tom Clancy's The Division when you go into the death zone or whatever it's called. So, again, like that is something we have to think about. So anyways, that's my tangent, my rant, if you will, on the migration system. But one of the things I'm going to be keeping track of as well for my conclusive thoughts is which kingdoms are labeled as active, crowded, and normal. And I'm going to be trying to look at these. I missed what 1 through 6 were, but I'm going to try and grab that data within 24 hours before, on the third day or the last day that migration is open. I'm going to try and grab that, and then because you have to think about it, that's the only thing we really have that gives us an indication of how active kingdoms are, right? Based on that, because there's really nothing else that we can publicly see that tells us, how many players. I mean, maybe if they extend the player leaderboards, maybe up to 500 or up to 1,000, then you can look at what the bubble position is and then kind of gauge what the growth is for like the number 500, number 1,000 player over a week-to-week period. And then you can try to get kind of an average or an estimate on general activity for basic growth and like how much the bubble's moving up for each of the kingdoms. But until something like that happens or other, it is a bit difficult. You could do things when the new update hits, which is something interesting I just thought of, because they're going to be adding in a way to kind of gauge general power growth. So if all the active alliances in a kingdom maybe gauge all of that on a spreadsheet or something, or they post kind of what their average number of general activity is, then you can add all those together and kind of get a soft gauge for majority activity in a kingdom, but that still would be a little bit of work. So anyways, not to veer off too far here from the migration topic, but what I want to hear now from you all is if you're in Kingdoms 1 through 6 and you've migrated, or you're in Kingdoms 7 through 10 and you've migrated, what's the experience been like for you? Have any of these kingdoms hit full yet and told you that they've just stopped you from going in? Along with, what do you think? If you're from a kingdom and you haven't had migration open yet, is anything that I'm saying keeping you on guard? Are you potentially worried about any of these situations? Or no, you're just happy with anything, doesn't really matter at this point, and maybe you just have a different view. With whatever it may be, I would love to hear. Let me know in the comments down below. That's going to be it for me. As always, until next time, I will catch you later.